We are live today at SEO Leadership, and we are so excited to have Sanjay on today. Sanjay is an SEO manager at CAVU, and his previous experience was a senior SEO strategist for Connective 3. Sanjay is an on-site SEO strategist with over 6 years of agency side experience. He provides marketing insight and recommendations to his clients to help increase their organic growth and visibility and performance. He has a lot of experience in various industries from legal, finances, and communications. So, yeah, with a lot of experience in the background, we are so excited to bring you on, Sanjay, today. So, thank you so much for coming on. And we are so excited to get into today's topics on thought leadership and team management and all of that. So, thanks, Sanjay.
No, brilliant. Thank you for having me, and thank you for reaching out as well. Yeah, excited to be here.
Awesome. Sanjay, I just wanted to kick things off quickly with a very interesting topic of conversation, which is that you, about a year ago or 2 years ago, moved from Connective 3 as a senior SEO strategist to now being an SEO manager at CAVU. Could you take us through maybe a little bit of that journey? What was your mindset shift, the team dynamic around it, and also if you have any advice for anyone else that's in a similar space or position?
Yeah. Brilliant. So I think off the top, I'd say straight away, if you are looking at getting into digital, I have a couple of friends now that are obviously graduating and family as well, that kind of are interested in it. And my always kind of first thing is do try and join an agency. Agency life, as we all know, really fast paced, a lot of challenges. You move really quickly through projects, and you get exposed to so many areas. I think that's why, even though I have a lot of background in agency working, I'm always thankful for it because I was able to kind of develop a skill set very quickly. And even not just hard skills, we'll touch on soft skills later on as well, but the soft skills are so important as well. But going to your question, Trey, when we're looking at kind of that transition from agency to in-house, as you mentioned, I'd been agency side now for a few years, working with multiple teams. And with that, there's obviously your ups, there's always downs as well. And yeah, essentially it got to the point where I kind of thought I'd learned a lot. C3, when I joined, were within the early days of operating. I think they'd just been operating for under 12 months anyway. So we were scaling really quickly. And with that growth scale, obviously there was a lot more projects I was involved in. I was really hands-on with some really great clients across the board, really great teams. And I'm thankful for the opportunities that Tim and the team gave me there. And it got to a point, I think, for me where I was like, first of all, I think I'm actually really good at my job. And secondly, now I think I can kind of take this experience and move to an in-house team that was growing. And CAVU, as most probably some of you won't be aware of, were formerly known as the Manchester Airport Group, where the performance marketing arm of the Manchester Airport Group. And the head of performance reached out and said, look, I'm looking at building a team here right now. And within, just under 2 years, me and my line manager, we've grown the team from 3 of us to 8 of us. And I've been able to kind of bring my agency experience in-house now. So for me, yeah, it's been a really good experience. I feel like we've kind of developed a nice culture here, as I mentioned as well, in previous talks that I've done. But yeah, I think that transition for me was really straightforward. It was I'd built up enough knowledge and experience. Let's try and move it in-house and kind of develop it further. And I think work on the soft skill side of things more.
When you moved over to CAVU, were you sort of, I can understand that you were establishing sort of the SEO team up there, but was there a particular onboarding process that the higher ups had involved you in? How easy was that sort of onboarding process and merging it and also sort of trying to make it your own and develop your own, I guess, culture within the team and things like that? And do you have any advice to any other SEOs that are in similar positions like that?
Yeah, it's actually funny. I'm smiling because when we brought on the most recent, I think it was my latest hire, my senior exec, before she joined, my manager made a joke how I was kind of thrown to the deep end. So when I joined the company, there wasn't an embedding process in terms of, oh, we'll give you some time, and it was a case of, okay, here are your websites, go do what you can now. And I think that's kind of nice because it kind of shows, A, for one thing, they trust in my skill set that I'm able to just go in and do the job. But also, B, I think it's nice to kind of have that trust from someone to say, you won't need a lot of hand-holding. And again, going back to C3, when I joined them, I had a line manager on paper, but they trusted in my skill set and the experience I built up, whereas a case of, look, we don't have to hold your hand at this point. Here's everything you need to do the job correctly. now go and do what you can do to get the best for your clients. And the same thing here. So there wasn't really as much of an onboarding process. It was a case of, here's my seat, here's where you're going to sit, here's your laptop, here are the brands you're going to work on, here are some files that we've done before as well. Any questions, give me a shout. And then it was a case of, I would slowly meet people for certain meetings in terms of, here's head of CRM, here's head of PPC. But yeah, I think, and again, it's no one's fault. The team was young at the time. I think over time we've matured, and as we've grown the team, we've kind of got more structure in place as well. But going to your question, I think in terms of advice for when people are starting new roles and new journeys, this is, I think, an experience thing. Just don't be afraid to ask questions. I think being in the space for so long now and having a bit of a senior position now across multiple agencies, I can kind of go into places and ask the questions and not feel, shy, I guess. For me, everyone's always willing to help. I've never met a team or a member of a team that said, I'm busy, leave me alone. If I'm the new person, I think people are more receptive to, we'll talk to this person and get them involved in stuff early on. So for me, if you're moving from agency to agency to in-house, whatever it may be, ask questions. Don't be shy, get involved, because I think, they're more interested in you than you are in them sometimes. So you're the new face effectively, if that makes sense.
I love that. Yeah,
definitely. And did you have any sort of plan for like what you wanted to sort of achieve, or did they have any idea of what you wanted to achieve within like the first sort of 30 days, 60 days?
Yeah, for me, I think it was that building that knowledge of the brand. So when, obviously, as you can imagine, agency side, you're working on a really diverse portfolio of clients. Here, I was quite lucky. I had 3 websites I was managing and looking after. And I think the main thing for me was, right, I'm going to go in there. And my first thing is, why are these not performing? Just off the top, I don't need to know why they're not from someone else. I need to get it in my head straight away, why they're not performing, what's dragging these sites down. And then from there, I can start to reverse engineer a strategy. And then I can feed that into the business case afterwards. And I think that was kind of communicated in the interview, but I think it was more so from my own sanity. I needed me to go in rather than someone tell me, here's the issue. And if I know what the issue is, then that makes it easy for me to digest it, as opposed to someone giving me a piece of paper and saying, here's an issue, can you go and fix it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, big time. And you mentioned the fact that you were growing out the team quite extensively. When it comes to hiring, what do you look for, first of all, in a CV, and then secondly, when they get to the interview stage?
That's a brilliant question. And I think it's something that's not talked about enough, to be fair, across not just SEO, but recruitment in general. If you look at a lot of the job specs now for SEO roles, they all kind of say the same thing, which is,
I say that to everybody.
Yeah, good with tech audits, need to manage budgets, X, Y, and Z. And I don't know if it's the same with you guys, but for me, I think the number one skill an SEO has to have is problem solving, because that's essentially our role in a nutshell. There's an issue here. We need to figure a solution, whether it be strategic, a technical, a content, a link. You've got to have that overall, right, here's an issue that I'm going to solve, and it's problem solving. And I've not met a single CV that has come to me and said, I do X, I've had this issue and I solved it by this, or a job spec online where it goes, we need someone that can think out the box creatively for problems. No one does it. And I get it, it's really broad, but for me, that's the one thing I look at when I'm looking at a CV. So with the interviews that I've done here at CAVU with my line manager, Emily, I'm always on the lookout in terms of, right, I drove performance by X. And then when they come into the interview room, I'm like, oh, well, you've done that. Can you explain how you did that? Did you lead on that project? Did you get it delegated to you? How have you grown that going further? Because if you can solve an issue there, I have more confidence in your skill set. If I give you an issue here, broadly, let's just say, you have that skill set and it can because that's more of a transferable skill set. So yeah, I think for me, that's the one thing I'm looking for is, can you solve an issue? And if you can't, that's fine. We can work on it. If you've got a passion for SEO, we can nurture that. But if you've got it, massive tick in my book.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's exactly what I tell candidates. A lot of people will put in sort of results under their CVs, but don't say how they got them. I was like, just link it to like a Google Doc and just create like at least one sort of case study that shows how the exact process of how you actually achieved that result, and it helps them stand out 10 times more.
Awesome. Just to take one step back from that, how do you identify when is the right time to hire within your company? I mean, like going from a team of 3 to a team of 8 in that span of time is impressive and interesting. So yeah, I'd like to know your thoughts on that.
The easy question is, it's when we're all stressed, but that's a bit too down really. I think for us it's a case of, we need to always look at resource. In-house, that's the biggest difference between an agency and an in-house team, is we've only got a certain amount of resource, and that's obviously split across your PPC, your CRM, affiliates, every single channel that we own currently. And so when it gets to a point where we know we've got too much work and not a lot of resource on the table, that's when we need to start looking at, right, do we need to kind of bring someone in? And I'm all about kind of making sure that we're hiring from the bottom up, because I met with my directors, I think it was yesterday actually, and we're talking about how do we actually build the next set of leaders. I think it's really easy for me as a manager to get involved in those conversations and look at, right, I'm going to be a director or head of in a few years' time. But I think being a manager and also being a dad as well now, my main focus is how do I actually make sure that the people below us are also having that skill set and those aspirations. So I think for me, it's a case of, I could probably do that work, but could I also bring in a team below us, senior exec level, that we can train, nurture to eventually, take over my jobs, be directors one day, be leaders one day. And I think for me, the minute we get to a point where we've got so much work that we can actually bring in an exec in, fantastic. Now we've got that person in, make sure they're a right fit. And then from there, we can start to nurture them in the right way. So in terms of your question, I think it's the minute I know the work's there for someone at a lower level to do, let's bring them in and let's start training them and let's start developing a team of leaders effectively.
I love that. I was we have a resource out, the SEO Leadership Playbook, and when we were doing it, for one of the best things that prior to lockdown, I mean, like even going as back as like 2018, 2019, was when studies started to show in America where the companies were starting to lack thought leaders, and where the next leaders coming from. So I love that you're investing in building up the next leaders, the next generation of leaders.
Brilliant. And Sanjay, just out of curiosity, when you're bringing through execs for that sort of training, is there any sort of technical skills or even sort of soft skills that those guys are lacking in that you sort of see as like a common theme across the board?
No, to be fair, it's a bit interesting because we've got, I mean, if you look at the two execs that report into me, we've had one who came on from a PR background but was really interested in the tech side of things. So he'd done a few technical audits and he wanted to bust that up basically. Whereas my senior exec, she has very little technical understanding, but she has a broader organic understanding. So for me, there's always going to be a varying degree, really. When I first joined Epiphany from Firecask, my biggest weakness was site speed. We didn't have the budgets to kind of go and actually implement the work. So I could run a tech audit on Site Bulb or Screaming Frog, but site speed was my biggest lacking, really, and Core Vitals that came in much earlier. So I think for us, it's technical is sometimes kind of lumped in terms of here's a tech SEO, but I think tech also has its own different verticals. You've got things like kind of server side, on page, that can span as well. So I think there's not really a common theme. I think it's just working with that exec and kind of making sure that they've got a baseline knowledge, and then kind of, if they've got a passion for, let's say, page speed, giving them the avenue and the challenge to go away and to explore that going further.
Brilliant. And when you were growing out the team, did you have like a set idea of what you wanted? Like, we need somebody who's more content focused as well as a tech focused, or were you looking for like all rounders, or how did you sort of figure out what would be the best structure for you guys?
Yeah, for me personally, because I'm more of an all-round organic kind of strategist, as it were, I wasn't looking for anything in particular. My main focus is I deal with a lot of high-value brands that are trading in America, so the demand's higher, issues a lot more as well. For the latest hire, I need someone to come in and hit the ground running. And so it's a case of, like I mentioned off the top of the show, could you come in and could you provide me an example in terms of have you actually been able to deliver across organic projects as a whole? If you can do it for a smaller site, I know with the right leadership and with the right models in place, you can do it for a bigger site, basically. So I'm always interested in terms of, if you're an all-rounder, perfect. If you're lacking in technical, fine, we can brush up on that. If you're good with PR but you don't know content, we can do that as well. So for me, I think because I've kind of been really lucky to kind of be exposed to everything in my career, I'm not looking for someone to come and do everything as well. Like, if you're lacking in one thing, that's my job to make sure that by the time you leave, if you do leave, you're an all-rounder yourself, basically. I think that's the one thing that's important. You kind of need to learn from me. It's not just me just saying, do this. It's the case of, like, if you want me to help you, I can help you as well.
Brilliant.
Fantastic. You mentioned one of the primary things you look for in CVs is being a problem solver. When you came over to CAVU, was there any point where you identified a major bottleneck, and how did you, with the team or the team that you're growing, identify it and work through it together as a team?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things is, and I think a lot of the SEOs that are on the call today will be like, yet we've been there. Is a technical resource. A lot of the work that obviously we need development resource, tech resource, however you want to call it. And I noticed really quickly that we just didn't have a lot of it. And it could be due to a number of factors. Obviously, it could be development CVs not being good enough. It was legacy platforms. There was just so much that was stopping us getting stuff implemented. And I remember actually, I read someone on LinkedIn, I don't know who did it at the time, but they put a tagline. It was literally just a few sentences, and it made so much sense to me. And I hold it dear to me today, which is a good SEO will never blame lack of tech as not getting the job done. And it's so true for me. Like if you're going to sit there 12 months into a project and say, I didn't have the tech time, that means you've not explored other avenues. So one of the things that I did for a smaller site to kind of prove concept was I asked the tech team, can you go away and give me CMS access? And whatever I can fix with that CMS, I will do it. And I will show the people here, this is what can be done with just a small scale bit of fixing, basically. And that's what we did. We went away, we got the logins, we got the access to the site. We went in, we fixed all the canonicals, redirects, everything we could do just by hand. At the time, we were getting the PR agency to build links into the site. We were fixing the content. And over time, you could see the non-brand visibility increase. And that was me saying, look, like this is what I did with a really small amount of access. Imagine what we could do with a massive number of tech resource behind it. And again, that proof of concept got people thinking, okay, this actually does work. And that led us to actually having development time before Christmas for about 2 months. And it was amazing. As you can imagine, it was 2 months of just pure tech tickets going out the door. So I think, yeah, like I mentioned, let's not blame the tech team. They're obviously under it anyway. Let's try and find other ways to fix issues, guys, is the message there.
Excellent, love that. And when you were going back just to making that switch to in-house, was there anything that you had to sort of adapt to obviously focusing down on one niche, like your skill set or anything like that?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing was it was kind of the whole, you're the sole responsible person. Like when you're agency side, you'll be an account manager or a strategist, and obviously that's your account. But you'll have people around you like a client director or a client services manager that will kind of help to kind of communicate things more effectively. But here in-house, a lot of the communication lies with myself. So I literally sit next to my e-com director and head of e-com. They might come to me and say, where are we with this project? Or where are we with the numbers? Or why are we not hitting things? And that's on me. I've got sole responsibility to explain to them, here's the reason why, here's why something's not happening or is happening. So I think the biggest thing was not having kind of an army, as it were, around you. It's kind of you're the sole person behind it. Like I have a team around me, but ultimately the organic performance rests on me and no one else. And I have to find a way to making sure that that fits within the overall marketing KPIs at the end of the day.
Awesome. Just moving into soft skills and also the managerial role that you're in right now. For anyone watching that is looking to develop their skills further to get into an SEO manager role, could you pinpoint maybe just one of the skills that you think really stood out to you that you worked on when getting to the role that you are now?
Yeah, I don't know if you'd call it a skill per se, but I think having the confidence to kind of just go and put yourself out there more than anything else. I don't know how you'd actually label that, if there's a word for it or not. I'm kind of struggling right now. But yeah, I think for me, I've kind of been the shy kid in a lot of obviously school, university, and in my first few roles, I was kind of the guy in the background. And I think it's, again, this is where I give so much credit to Connected 3 and to Tim and to the team around me, because when I went in there, they kind of gave me the freedom to say, well, here's your clients, do what you can. And I think over time that developed my skill set in being able to communicate more effectively. I could do SEO work fine and I could build strategies fine, but it was a communication. It was being able to take a risk with certain things, learning, and being more confident overall. And I think maybe too confident at times. Maybe I'm a bit too outspoken, I think, sometimes now. But that's also not a bad thing, because I feel like sometimes you've got to be the loud person in the room. And so for me, whether you've got an idea at an exec level, a junior level, or even a head of level, get yourself out there. We've obviously talking about obviously your leadership book, and also about investing in the youth of the next leadership team. My message to my direct reports and exec team is just shout about it. If you've got an idea, if you've got something, let me know. I'm going to learn from you as much as you're going to learn from me. So I think, yeah, I don't know. That's a long-winded answer to what you asked me, Shreya. I apologize. But yeah, the biggest thing for me would just be confident. don't worry about it. Like, look, you might get it wrong. Fine, take it as a learning lesson. We move on. Yeah, that's kind of the biggest lesson in soft skill for me.
Did you ever experience imposter syndrome? And you can't say no.
Yeah, no, all the time.
Okay.
When I took the role, it was the first time on paper where it was a case of you are going to have execs reporting into you, and I was like, right, that's daunting, because I've been in charge of my own workflow for 6 years, my own progression, my own everything for 6 years, effectively. Now I've got someone who's going to be looking up to me to look after them, as per se, and that was daunting. And it's been a nice. I think at first it took me a while to get used to it, and I think it was the one thing that I kind of wanted to bring up today as well. And I think we've all had it. We've all been in different like roles and industries. We've all had good and bad managers, and for whatever reason, we're going to take certain things away from them. Similar to myself, I've had bad managers, bad experiences, good experiences, and my main kind of takeaway, I always said to myself, whenever I do become a manager, I'm going to make sure that I'm a human first and a manager second. I think that's the biggest thing. And that's why, I mean, I'm hoping they agree with me. I'm a lot more open and approachable to my execs now. And I'm hoping they might say completely different. I'm not sure. But
few comments going off there.
What are you on about? I never said that. Means being open. I have an open relationship with my execs. I make sure that they're aware. Look, I expect this from you, but at the same time as well, like you need to expect certain things from me. Like, and that's the biggest thing. So for me going forward, yes, I have imposter syndrome. I'm always probably going to have it, if I'm honest with you. But yeah, I'm loving every minute of being a manager. It's been great. It's I think having people looking up to me in a managerial aspect has made my career better as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, big time. And you spoke about confidence. I saw you actually recently, well, not recently, but about 8 months or so ago, you did a talk up north.
Yeah.
How did that go for you? What was that like? And how would you what would you recommend for junior SEOs to like the importance of going to those networking events?
100%. Look, if you're an exec, there's two parts to that, and I'll kind of go into both. But if you're an exec right now, go to them for two reasons. One, you are going to pick up some nuggets from someone, whether it be knowledge, whether it be just a conversation you overhear, just go for it. But second, the networking. Like after my talk, I had people coming up to me and asking me questions, and that was great. Like I met so many nice people after the event. So for me, like it's the networking. It's like as we all know, like digital in itself is a little social bubble, and we all kind of live on LinkedIn anyway. But I had people following me on Instagram off the back of it because we just had a few beers afterwards and we started chatting. So for me, like 100% go for it for the community and also just for the experience. But going back to your first thing, mate, in terms of the talk itself, if I'd be lying, I'm glad I chose blue because I was sweating so bad that whole day. I was so nervous. I was a wreck. Leading up to it, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be great. I'm obviously confident. I can speak really well. It's going to be fantastic. And I woke up and I got to the venue and I was like, I need to find a way to go home right now because I'm not going to do it. And I think the way they placed me in the rota, I was kind of like in the middle of the pack. I wasn't the beginning, I wasn't the end, I was like in the middle bit. So I saw everyone else's talk and I was like, oh, these guys are amazing. I'm nowhere near as good as these. And then I sat there, but it's my time to go. And I've had Helen, who's head of one of the car groups there, SEO. She was fantastic. I had another person go before me who's like SEO lead at BBC. He was great. And I was like, right, here, I'm off now. And I remember just like getting up, getting ready. And then Rosa, who's a really good friend of mine from C3, was introducing me. And I was like, the minute I heard my name and I heard the crowd like clapping, nerves just left me. And I think at that point I was looking and I was like, I'm actually okay. I'm fine. And then I got onto my first live, and the minute that first laugh hit, and this is my advice to anyone that is going to do a talk going forward. If you are nervous, get a joke in there first. Get someone to make them laugh. The minute that first laugh hits, you are going to be at ease. And 25 minutes went so quickly. And I remember looking down and people were like taking notes. And I'm like, what are you taking notes of? What's valuable about this? And then I had people say to me, oh, yeah, I'm an exec. And that was really interesting. I'm going to go away and do that and apply it to my work. And I was like, fantastic. That's all I wanted to hear because that's going to help you in your career. And for me, like that's my biggest goal is helping people kind of avoid the mistakes I did and kind of progress quicker in the role.
Yeah, no, we hosted our first event in June last year. And I had to get up and talk for like 15-20 minutes. Beforehand, I was just sitting there sweating, looking at everybody else, just counting down like the seconds to when I went up. But yeah, no, I cracked the joke like straight away before I even went into my first slide, like, and it just calms everybody down so much. I couldn't recommend it enough.
Are you going to do it again, do you reckon?
Yeah, I think we're looking to do another event this year, so I'll probably go up and talk a bit more and probably make it a bit longer as well. But yeah, it's the few minutes beforehand, I honestly just wanted to cry. Just wanted to disappear.
I got off stage and I hugged all my team after me, and I was like, never again, never again. And then I got an invite from Beth, one of the directors at another agency called Digital Loft, and she was like, "Oh, I heard you were great. Do you want to do another talk?" And I was like, "Yeah, go on then. I'll do another one. Why not?"
Yeah.
So I think at first it was like, "I'm going to do it," and then I was like, "You know what? I like it. It's actually not too bad." So yeah, I've got another one due in April now, so that should be a fun experience.
Amazing.
Do you have
sorry?
Where are you speaking?
Do you have a topic in mind?
Yeah, so it's so the first question is going to be in Manchester again. Now the topic, if anyone is on the chat and is going to actually be there, I'm not going to say too much, but the headline is going to be "I'm sorry, my apology to the PR teams," and that's it. And it's deliberately a bit of a clickbaity title. There will be an apology in there, but again, like we've kind of mentioned, because I've had a lot of experience, I feel like I owe people an apology for the way I went about how I would look at certain teams. And also kind of now that I've done, 8 years in the industry now, I've learned a lot as well. So it's kind of a case of, look, here's what I got wrong during my first few years in SEO. I apologize for that. But here's how you can kind of implement stuff in your own teams to avoid the mistakes I made. So that's kind of that's where I'm going to end it because I don't want to give too much away. But that's going to be in Manchester in April. So that should be fun.
Yeah, no, hopefully we can get down to it as well.
Yep.
And then in terms, I know you mentioned the culture aspect of growing out the team at the minute. Has there been any sort of steps or any sort of things you've added in to sort of get that culture? Especially, I think, are you guys hybrid at the minute? Is that right?
Yes, yeah, we are hybrid. Yeah, so we're 2 days a week currently. In terms of kind of the steps that we've taken, I think for us it was really key early on to kind of make sure that people felt part of the team straight away. I mean, as you can imagine, when you kind of move into a new team and everyone's kind of got their own social bubbles, it's one of those things where it's a case of like, where do you kind of fit in? How do you kind of naturally slot in? And I think the one thing that we do really well here is the minute someone joins in, it's a case of, right, team lunch straight away. You're going to come with us. We're going to walk down to the terminal. I'm going to find out a bit more about you. We do this thing here, which is a bit annoying, where the minute you join, we have a call every other week with about 200 people across UK and US. And if you're a new starter, you have to kind of jump on and talk a bit about yourself and have one interesting fact. And that can be yeah, so we've had everything, mate. We've had things like one person used to be a zookeeper before he went and did PPC. So we've had everything. And I think that's kind of nice because that opens up conversations now with your team. Like, oh, that was kind of interesting. Talk to me more about it. But yeah, the biggest thing for me culturally is everyone's so open. I think we've hired not just the right experience, but also the right sort of mentality. People that want to learn, want to grow. Like the one thing I'm really proud of here with the team is there's no egos. Like for me, that's a no-go because I've worked in places where there has been a bit of an ego battle. And within my team right now, whether it be naturally or just over time, there's no egos here. We're always on the same page, making sure that we've supported each other. If I've got an issue, I know I can count on another manager to help me with that as well. So yeah, for me, that's kind of been the biggest thing, and that's been the biggest kind of thing we've accelerated as well. We've got a team that's grown over time because of the no ego situation, which I find great.
That's actually such an interesting one. Ego can be the killer of joy. So yeah, definitely agree with that. I just wanted to quickly end off with a last question in regards to thought leadership. You were chatting about how you love to bring in your team and promote leadership skills within them. How are you actively practicing that? Or do you have any tips in mind that you want to explore? And do you have anything to pass on to other SEO managers that may be exploring that as well?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think the one thing that I'm always keen to know from when I'm interviewing people or when they start is I need to kind of understand on the skills matrix where your skills lie and where you need like kind of that skill kind of increase or upskilling in basically. And I think that kind of, for me, then helps to fill out a progression plan. So over time, I understand right now, you're really good here, but you might not be good in this area here. Over the next 6 months, I'm going to make sure I give you the right projects that are going to accelerate your growth and make that weakness into a skill set. And the one thing that I'm doing now more so, and this is what came off the back of the call yesterday with my directors, is I want to start to give more ownership to projects, to the execs, without a line manager being in that meeting. So the one thing that I'm going to start kicking off in the new financial year is, right, you execs are going to meet up once a week, whenever you find it appropriate to do so. I want you to discuss these topics. That's all I'm going to give you. It's your job now to go away and make a project off the back of that. I'm not going to be there in the meeting and leading on it. That's your job to do that. But I'll be there to make sure that by the end of the quarter, I need to figure out, has this worked or not? And if it hasn't, understand why it hasn't, pivot on that strategy, maybe roll it back a bit and go from there. Because I think the one thing that I didn't have a lot of in my career was the trust to say, actually, you know what? You can go and do this. You don't need me there to hold your hand. Go and do it. I've said it a few times, the holding hand principle. And for me, I think it's so crucial. Like, we do it with kids. We do it with, obviously, execs to a certain level as well. But when it gets to a point where I believe you're ready for it, go away and you don't need me there now. Just do that. I'm here for the support, but you can go away and actually do your own thing effectively. So that's the way I'm kind of empowering my next set of leadership teams, is to kind of take on projects without my approval. If you think something's good enough, don't worry about it. Go do it. We'll figure it out afterwards, if that makes sense.
I love that. Awesome. That hit the mark on our 30 minutes. But thank you so much, Sanjay. That was like such awesome answers and great insight into what's going on at CAVU, and we can't wait to follow along and also just follow with your talk that's coming up in April as well. Very excited for that. Just for everyone out there, where can they mainly follow you? Is it Twitter or X or LinkedIn?
LinkedIn. LinkedIn probably the main thing. I just said to Sanjay Purewal. I'm sure it'll be on the invite as well for the show as well. But follow, connect. Feel free to ask questions. I think and if you are coming down to the talk in April, by all means, look. I am really casual, as you can tell. Not your typical manager. So if you want to catch me up for a little drink, for a chat, by all means, please do. I'm more than happy to talk shop and talk ideas. And even if it's not about SEO, whatever, I'm happy to kind of talk and learn from everyone. So that's kind of it. And guys, thank you so much for this. This has been great.
It's been brilliant. Smashed it.
Have a great weekend, and we'll chat soon.
Great. Thank you, guys. See you then.
Cheers, Sanjay.